Okay, guys, not gonna lie. Last week's episode, a little bit of a letdown from the whole, launching the NWO thing, but it's okay. It's a new week. We're still at Disney, and this time we got Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's gonna be here. The Outsiders are gonna be here. It's gonna be great. So we can have them come out and confront Sting, right?
No, he's in
No.
Japan.
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. Flair. He can fight Flair. That'll be pretty good. Hulk Hogan, Flair.
He's in Japan too.
Oh, Japan too, huh? I mean, the Giant's a heel, but he's on WCW's side. He can fight the Giant.
Also in Japan.
Rey Mysterio. Well, who do we have?
Got Lex Luger.
Okay,
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah, Lex.
Awesome. So he's ready to go then.
I mean, he's only got like one eye, and the doctor said he shouldn't wrestle for 6 months because of his concussion.
Good enough. Let's go.
The following podcast has been paid for by the new Pod Order.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 3 of the new Pod Order. We're back here and we're chronicling the rise of the New World Order, the greatest faction in all of wrestling history. So if you were here looking for some kind of conspiracy theory stuff, you wanted to hear about the reptilians and how they ate adrenochrome, wrong podcast. Sorry. But stick around. Maybe you'll enjoy something about WCW. I'm your host, Adam Rogers. I've showed up today in my purple pants and my white tank top to vigorously boo all of the heels the entire show long. To my right, my first co-host, Joe the Brain Chasick. How are we doing today, Joe?
Doing great. How do you suppose all the humanoids are out there?
Couldn't be better because we're here and we're talking about Monday Nitro. And to his right, he's the man of the hour, the Tower of Power. He likes his Chinese food sweet and sour. He's America's brother, Matt Rogers. Say hello to the people, Matt.
Hello, people.
All right. So we're here today. We're in episode 3, like I said. We're going to talk about a Nitro from the 15th of July, 1996. Let's jump back in time in the old Wayback Machine. For this episode of Nitro, we'll take a look at what was going on in the world at the time. The Time magazine cover featured Boris Yeltsin with the headline "Yanks to the Rescue." Cover story talking about how American political advisors had helped him win the 1996 Russian presidential election. And there were never any issues between Russia and the United States after that point. So really a landmark moment in history. Our number one movie is still Independence Day. So, give your computer a cold in honor of that. But our new Billboard number 1 is Because You Love Me by Celine Dion. And our number 1 rated TV show for the week is ER. And I have a feeling between Seinfeld and ER, we're going to be seeing that pretty much weekly from this point on. And it wouldn't be WCW if we didn't swipe the WWF's lineup for the show coming up. This week's show, actually not completely terrible, which is a rare thing to say for 90s WWF. So we've got this storyline building up with Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson, and now Psycho Sid are going to team up. Psycho Sid filling in for the Ultimate Warrior. are going to team up to face Camp Cornette. So each of the individual champions, Ahmed's the IC champion, Sean's the world champion, put their titles on the line against the individual members of the Smoking Guns. Decent matches. Plus, you got Sonny at ringside to look at, so can't complain about that. Then they get jumped in the back, but Psycho Sid comes in and literally crashes a car while rescuing them. So, kind of exciting. Not as exciting as Nitro, though. So we pop back into our episode. We're back at MGM. Again, the Atlanta Olympics are going on, so there's no crew or staff that could be used to film Nitro. So we're here back in Orlando. I did notice that through the intro video, Hulk is still wearing his red and yellow. We'll see how long it takes for that to switch. Obviously, this was the week that he shows up in black, but we'll see if they end up getting around to flipping that. And Hulk Hogan is the topic of discussion, as he has been for most of the WCW programming for the last week or so since the pay-per-view, because he's going to be here tonight. And I think Shivani hits it right on the head when he says that might make tonight's just as big of an event as Bash at the Beach was. Zbyszko offers up a theory that's going to be kind of a running theory through the show, because he mentions that he's looking over his shoulder because he wants to know who else could be in the NWO. They've got the third man of Hulk Hogan, but is there a fourth man? Is there a fifth man? Possibly a little early for that, in my opinion, in the storytelling standpoint. I see you guys nodding. I don't know. It seems like I don't blame this on Larry, because the way it's central to everything that's going on, clearly this was a writing thing that, Bischoff or somebody was like, okay, this is going to be the thing. Let's hit this over and over through the show. But yeah, I don't know. They've barely even had any chance to breathe, and now it's like, well, there could be more members.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes that it was like, are they giving away the game again? Because like, you haven't even let the angle breathe yet. You haven't had Hogan on television, and you're already saying, well, who's next? It doesn't really devalue the moment of having Hogan on television, but it also kind of puts it in there that this isn't it. This isn't the biggest thing. It's going to keep getting better. It just seemed weird to me. And I guess, like you said, it may have just been the writers trying to push the story forward, but I think it would have been better to let that happen naturally and not try to force it through the commentary, repeating it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe the NWO should have brought it up first.
Right.
For there to be a reason for them to be asking that question. I think that if we had opened next week's show with the question of who else is going to join and when they're going to do it, you would have had a really natural way to go ahead and progress that storyline, but we're just kind of out of left field here.
Right, exactly. Hogan drops it in his promo at the end of like, hey, there could be more people, and then you got a whole new thing to worry about. So yeah, we have some thoughts, WCW storyline writers. We'll get in touch with you. One thought that I had while I was watching the first part of the show is who is this tag team that's coming out to the ring, and why didn't they get their names on the screen from production? Because we head into the first match, and the first match is Fire and Ice versus the Steiner brothers, but poor Ice Train and Scott Norton come out and they're walking to the ring, and there's just nothing. Like, nothing on the screen. I was like, who are these guys? I had to go look it up, because it was a while before even the commentators mentioned who they were.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know I rewound my video like 3 times going, they had to have announced these guys, and then I settled into, well, maybe they're just developmental jobbers that are gonna get crushed in under a minute. But it was just so weird to not see a cryon, not hear an announcement. It was very out of left field.
Really, really jacked developmental jobbers, if that was the case. The only reason I had any idea who they were is because of the fact that I had gone back and watched everything for like the month and a half before this. Otherwise, I would have been right there with you guys. I watched enough WCW when I started a couple years later that I knew who Scott Norton was. I didn't recognize this Scott Norton because his look has completely changed by the time that I start watching. But yeah, it was definitely a choice not to introduce the first wrestlers we see all night.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I don't know if it was a choice or if it was just a screw up in the back, but that's the joys of live television during this period, I suppose. But
and the joys of live television when you don't have your full normal crew.
Exactly. Zbyszko hits the theme of the episode again on the way out. Wants to know if the NWO is recruiting. And lets out the idea of it's going to be another outsider, and this is, I think, maybe the first time this idea kind of gets thrown out. Could be someone else in WCW turning and joining in. Specifically, Hulk's got a lot of money and influence, so could he just buy some people off to get them to come in? Shortly thereafter, we get our intro to the other star of the show that we've affectionately in our Discord named Purple Pants Meemaw. This grandma with her family and her grandkids that are over there that are fortunately or unfortunately they're just center stage on the hard cam, so they're going to be there the whole episode long. And I'm not gonna lie, it was entertaining. She was having a good old time. Like, she was every boo all the time. Every heel that's out there, she's thumbs downing them viciously, or cheering for all the faces. So she was into it, and it was entertaining for me too. So we'll check in with her on whether she approves or disapproves as the show goes along of the actions. Shivani at this point also throws out that the NWO have kind of picked their spot to make their appearance, which I'm assuming was just sort of timing, but it does kind of create a storyline because for this episode, Sting, Flair, the Giant are not here. Macho Man Randy Savage, not here. They're all on a Japan a tour through Japan while this is going on. So not ideal because you can't get your head, two sides facing. But honestly, after watching this and kind of going through it, I've kind of come around to sort of where you guys were at, or I think Joe was at on the last episode of like, yeah, it's not perfect, but what it does do is build up like the hype of the story, because now you've got, the good guys have had their chance to talk and say their side of the story. Now the bad guys get their time in this light here. Then we get to see after this, okay, now what happens when we bring these sides together? So I think it works. It's probably by mistake, in my opinion, but it works. We also hear about how, and it's just kind of funny in the context of like this rebel that's going to take on the show. Shivani brings up how Hogan claimed Ted did give him the opportunities that he was supposed to have, but hey, Mr. Nanny is preparing on TBS the following night, so screw you, Hulk Hogan. I mean, what kind of more opportunities you could get? Oh, well, maybe we'll put Thunder in Paradise on as the lead into Nitro, the show where Hulk Hogan has a talking boat.
I feel like that should have been in like 1986.
Yeah.
Not 1996.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Nanny had never gone so over as in this show.
No, yeah, that's true. It's really got the rub from WCW. So
Have you ever had the good fortune of seeing Mr. Nanny?
I can't say that I have.
Oh God,
no.
It's a cinematic masterpiece.
It's a wonderful movie. You have missed out on it.
Okay, I'll get to that after I see Santa with Muscles. Put that on the list. So as far as the match goes, we've got Scott and Scott Norton kind of teaming off against each other here in the beginning. Some kind of back and forth. There's a clothesline in the corner, boot, clothesline to take it back. I didn't write a lot of stuff down about what's going on here, so much as general observations of the fact that Norton, I don't know, Joe, you've seen him wrestle in other episodes before this. Is he always this lazy, or was he just not feeling it this day?
I hesitate to use the word lazy overall. This was definitely not his best showing. I I kind of feel like so Scott Norton's a guy who works a lot in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he's maybe a guy who feels that American wrestling is a little beneath him and he's just doing this for the money. I could have the wrong read on the situation, but yeah, because he doesn't always look real interested in the other matches I've seen him in either.
Well, and I was going to say, now that you mentioned he was in Japan, it kind of ticked the box. He was kind of working a really lazy strong style because he was working very stiff at the start of the match, like full chokes, like clean hits, hair pulls. So he was coming out to rough Scott Steiner up in the beginning, but on the other hand, it didn't work because he wasn't really putting a whole lot of effort into it. So lazy strong style, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah, and I kind of called that out too, because like he's just burying the referee in the match because he's just choking, whichever Steiner is there right in front of the ref. The ref tells him to stop, and maybe he lets go for a minute, but then he just starts choking him again, and like no concern about getting disqualified at all. I don't know. It came off to me like going through the motions. Lackadaisical is the term that I thought of, but. Given kind of the story that they're sort of building with it, with Fire and Ice, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm being generous giving them credit there, but Ice Train over the break, we get a commercial break and we come back. Now you got Rick Steiner in with Ice Train, who I had no recollection of at all. Joe, have you seen Ice Train in anything? Okay. I knew you went back and watched some Nitros from before.
One or two real short tag matches on the road to this. Not enough to really form an opinion.
Gotcha. And here comes Teddy Long coming out from the back. Also random. He's not a representative for either team. Maybe he just sees an opportunity play and he's going to come out and take advantage of it.
I think maybe he thought that he could, put one of these teams against the Undertaker in a tag team match.
Could be. I did note Rick does a belly to belly at one point that I think he kind of under rotates and sort of drops Ice Train on his head. So that doesn't help the match much. Norton gets tagged back in, gets a little bit more heat on Scott before Scott tags Rick in. And I guess that was supposed to be the hot tag. It was a pretty lukewarm tag, honestly. There was at least one impressive spot that I marked out where Rick was running and Norton goes to like jump and it's a nothing, but I'll say, okay, maybe it was supposed to be like a Thez press or a belly bump or something like that to knock him down. But Rick just picks him out of the air and like dead weights him over into a power slam. So that was pretty cool looking. Yeah. And then we head home. We do some more burying of the ref after that, when Norton takes control again. And then we start to head home. Norton is holding Rick down while Ice Train goes to do like a splash on him. And then basically Rick rolls forward and I guess is supposed to have drugged Norton's head with him as he did it. So Ice Train kind of splashes his back. Scott sort of pops Ice Train one while he's up doing the, oh no, what did I do? Rick belly to backs him and then just pins him at that point for the 1, 2, 3, despite one, Ice Train not being the legal man at the time, and two, his foot is clearly just sitting under the ropes.
Well, I was going to say one issue too that I made note of is Rick hit that German suplex and then kind of forgot where he was in the match, and there's a solid like 2 or 3 count before his brain reconnects and he crawls over to the cover. So it was a really sloppy finish.
Yeah, he was clearly supposed to have bridged that. The third problem with the pin is that the referee's counting before Rick is actually pinning Ice Train.
It did kind of look pretty just in terms of like you could see the amateur wrestling kind of come back into him as he crawled over into the pin. So that looked right, but not a great ending to a not a great match. I theorized that maybe the referee is just getting some payback on Norton at that point. Like, here's all right, fucker, you've been screwing with me all match, so here I'm gonna bury you. But yeah, I think the match is summed up pretty well at the end when you see Scott and Rick kind of look at each other with a "can you believe this shit" kind of look as they head out from it, because I don't know, not great. I can't imagine we're gonna get a lot of ratings from this one, Joe.
Oh boy, a half a star.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
the
I
match
think that's
was
fair.
the match was about as forgettable as Fire and Ice's Cryon was at the beginning of the match.
Fair enough. Yeah. And unfortunately, this kind of becomes a little bit of a theme for the rest of the show as we're going along, because we're not going to see some, with some exceptions, we're not going to see some peak wrestling as we're going along here. But first, we got to cut over to the Dungeon of Doom interview. We got Sullivan. We've got who, I think that it's, we've kept this as a secret up to this point. But we gave him a call and we checked to make sure that it was okay. Bubba introduces himself as Bubba Rogers in this, so I think it's time that we can let him know that's our Uncle Bubba. So we appreciate him supporting things. We'll check in with him from time to time to get some behind the scenes stories. He doesn't like to brag, but we can get kind of some info there. And then of course Jimmy Hart, who we are going to see in almost every segment for the rest of the show. So if you're a Jimmy Hart fan, this Nitro, Purple Pants Meemaw would give it a big thumbs up. Gene also implies the Faces of Fear are supposed to be here, Meng and the Barbarian, but they're not. So again, things are going great on Nitro so far. So we start with talking to Sullivan. Sullivan reiterates that point about how they made the Dungeon of Doom to end Hulkamania. They didn't know Hulk was going to come in and take over WCW, but Jimmy Hart has a plan. What is Jimmy Hart's plan? To, get back at Hulk Hogan for screwing them over here? To end the Four Horsemen, obviously. Duh. What else could you do?
Those noted Hulk Hogan allies.
Yes, noted allies of Hulk Hogan. Yeah. This feels like a Hail Mary. Like, oh shit, we just buried this faction. What are we gonna do with them?
Yeah, I had it in my notes. They come out and they start talking about killing Hulkamania. And then all of a sudden we have this wild swap to, now we got to take out those rascally Four Horsemen. I don't care what I got to do. I'll recruit everybody so we can take down those Four Horsemen. And I'm like, well, that was a swing. We went from screw you Hulkamania to now we got to kill the Four Horsemen. So I don't know. It's like you said, they probably were like, ah, shit, what do we do now? We made this whole faction and it's got nothing to do.
Right. Well, and Joe, you'd mentioned previously that there is an issue between the DOD and the Four Horsemen, specifically starting from Sullivan and Benoit, but just the logic of how somehow this is the answer that they need to have to deal with Hulk Hogan is puzzling to me.
Yeah, I feel like maybe there was a line left out of the promo. Jimmy's got a plan, but first,
okay,
we're gonna finish the Four Horsemen so that we can focus our full attention on taking care of Hulk Hogan. Just something that simple would make this promo really, make sense. Might be a stretch, but yeah, it'd be serviceable. Yeah.
Logical in some way.
I did note that apparently Big Bubba Rogers is third in command of the Dungeon of Doom since he's out with Sullivan in place of the Giant.
Yeah, it's good. We got our org chart set up, so that's good.
He's just the Giant's backup. He's in Japan. Yeah. You have to have backups on your org chart.
Yeah, especially when apparently the Faces of Fear didn't get the memo of the start time. They come wandering out midway through in the back. There they are. But Bubba's going to be at our main event tonight. He's going up against Lex Luger, who this creates our opportunity for a new segment on our show, the Kayfabe Injury Update. There'll probably be a drop of some kind there that I'll figure out. But so we have finally information on what happened to poor Lex after he took his lethal stinger splash, collateral damage in the main event at Bash at the Beach. Apparently, the commissioned doctors have said he has a concussion and a detached retina. So I looked it up. It's been 1 week at this point, 1 week and a day since Bash at the Beach. Recovery time for a detached retina is 3 to 8 weeks for the initial healing. Final visual stabilization can take over several months to a year. So basically, for the next several months, we got to keep it in the back of our head. Lex Luger can only see out of one eye. Especially because most people are able to return to light activity after 2 to 4 weeks. But strenuous activity like, I don't know, a professional wrestling match, for instance, restricted during that period. But so yeah, keep that in your back of your head. Lex is wrestling with one eye, but as they said in the seminal film 300, this is why God gave him two. So he's gonna tough it out because he's the only one here that can face the NWO.
He clearly has said his prayers and eaten his vitamins, so he's ready.
Well, he's eaten some kind of drugs anyway, let's move on. But yeah, so Bubba says he's gonna put him to sleep personally tonight, so that's taking things to a whole nother level. Doesn't care if he's got his eye or his concussion, but he's taking him out. Again, a critical part of the Dungeon of Doom's mission to destroy the Four Horsemen, to destroy Hulkamania, is to take out Lex Luger. Okay. And yeah, Sullivan pops in to mention that Benoit got too personal with him. Accurate. At the pay-per-view, Gene agrees that a bathroom is kind of personal, so Gene's mixed up which pay-per-view he's talking about there. But yeah, overall thoughts, Matt, on this interview segment with Mean Gene and the DOD.
It was a mess. You bounced around. Hulkamania, Four Horsemen, Luger. Apparently, they are the G.I. Joe villain of bad guys, where they're just throwing shit against the wall to see what's gonna stick. Because if you're going to defeat Hulkamania, Hulk Hogan, sorry, Hulkamania is dead. If you're going to defeat Hulk Hogan, you just got to keep throwing stuff, and eventually Hulk Hogan's going to fall down. As for Uncle Bubba's focus on Lex, it was a thing to say he was going to put him to sleep. I don't know. Maybe his finisher is a sleeper. I don't remember. I was hoping it wasn't a reference to killing him, but, if you... clearly Luger can't see, so he's just trying to put him out of his misery. That's what you do to horses when they've got injuries like that. So, it's only horse WCW's got in the race at this point. So,
fair enough. Joe, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so you mentioned that about I really hoped he wasn't referencing killing him. He did say that he was going to put him to sleep permanently, which. I don't know, Bubba. That sounds like a terroristic threat to me. Maybe you don't have to go that hard on Monday night. At least save
Disney at Disney MGM Studios.
Yeah,
let's not forget that.
At Disney.
Uncle Bubba's just a little intense.
But definitely a thumbs down from Purple Pants Meemaw on threatening to kill Lex Luger in the ring. A thumbs up from me for the next bit, which are the vignette interviews going into the break. Big fan of these. I can't remember if this was something that they are just debuting here or if they've been doing it previously on some Nitros and not on some others, but I like it. Little quick hits to hear from the wrestlers to set up things for later in the match. This one, we're looking at Dean Malenko. He's saying tonight's his first step of getting back his cruiserweight title, and it is a bad time for Billy Kidman to get in the ring with him, which, accurate. Agreed. And this, of course, takes us to the Glacier commercial, which I know, Matt, you're a big fan. You were waiting for it. The heart of the warrior that's in you was beating just at the thought of it. One of the things I thought of this week to try to, keep the Glacier thing fresh is a question for you guys. Throw it out. Mortal Kombat characters. Let's say you can't have Sub-Zero. You need some other Mortal Kombat character. Who do you think would work as a WCW wrestler?
Well, you already got the costume getting put together. Just recolor it and make him Scorpion.
Okay, fair enough.
So I thought as I was mulling this over, I was continuing to watch through the show. A little later tonight, we're going to get to see Chris Benoit wrestle again. And I couldn't help as he walked to the ring that this era of Chris Benoit has a certain resemblance to Christopher Lambert. So I vote that we just take Chris Benoit, give him a new gimmick, and he can be our legally distinct Raiden. We've got the CGI for the fire effects in the intro and the snow effects in the Glacier commercial. Surely we can do CGI lightning.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if we're gonna go that far, my thought, Goro. Fuck it, why not? Let's get Goro out there. This is a promotion that famously had RoboCop come out to save their wrestlers one time. So there are no rules in WCW. Goro is my choice. We come back. Gene's in the back. He's interviewing Fire and Ice. They're bickering because Ice jumped on the back of Norton's head and not theoretically, did cost them the match. Ice is saying he does things within the rules. Not true, given what we've seen of him so far. Again, he's not the legal man while he caused the end of the match there. But there's a better way to do things. So I guess if this issue keeps rolling forward on the TV, we'll be having Ice Train as our face and Norton as our heel. This is where Teddy Long shows up again, trying to patch things up between the two, which, I mean, I thought maybe Teddy's out here to poach Ice Train. Maybe that's the idea, and I think that is what ends up happening. But, why is he trying to fix the tag team if that's what he's after? So, I don't know. But Norton pushes, face palms Teddy and throws him down on the ground. Ice Train jumps in to protect him. Says they're going to hook it up soon. So we got Fire versus Ice to look forward to in the coming weeks, probably. But what we do have to look forward to right now is Billy Kidman, a pre-Raven, a young Billy Kidman coming out in his trunks and his cool jacket, going to fight Dean Malenko. But as Dean is coming out, here's Jimmy Hart again. Jimmy Hart appearance number 2, if you're counting at home, talking to Dean on the way out. So between Teddy and between Jimmy, I guess this is recruitment night for managers. But it does make a little bit of sense because right around this point, Shivani mentions that Malenko is going to face Benoit at Hog Wild. And so we know Chris Benoit and the Dungeon of Doom have their issues at this point. So a little bit of a seed plant here for a storyline. And a little bit of a seed plant for me going we get Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit at this pay-per-view. Heck yeah. Pretty excited for that match. Start things off. Handshake, lead to a clothesline. Boy, that Kidman. He'll get a little experience on him. He won't fall for that stuff anymore. Things start out hot for Dean. My main takeaway from this one was I liked this match better last week when he did it with Rey Mysterio, because this is in some places spot for spot the same as the match with Rey last week, just with Kidman, who's good but is not Rey Mysterio, to back it up. This clicked for me when they were on the outside and Dean goes for the pile driver and Kidman back body drops on her okay, I've seen this before. We're doing a little bit of the greatest hits here, I think. What do you guys think about how this thing started out, Matt?
Yeah, no, I thought it started out pretty well. You had a little bit of cheap heat coming out with the handshake going into that. You get to the outside. Yes, you are doing a little bit of the formula from last week, but both wrestlers are pulling it off well. We talked about it earlier before we started, but seeing Kidman not in jorts was kind of jarring, but young Kidman in a full wrestling outfit was putting on a good show. So I liked it. I guess now that you've mentioned it, I can't unsee the fact that it was following the same formula as the week before, but I guess I didn't clock it in the real time because I was just enjoying the match.
I wonder how much of that is we're keeping it simple for a guy that we probably haven't had a lot of opportunity to work with. You know, or it could just be that, hey, you know, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan aren't the only guys that have a paint by numbers thing that they like to go to when they can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, Dean's clearly, I think we have our answer because we weren't sure last week who was calling the match with Dean and Ray. So I think this probably backs up that it's probably Dean, which makes sense. He's more of a veteran at this point anyway. As Dean is working Kidman over in the ring, we get back, you know, Zbyszko and Shivani are back to this discussion about looking over his shoulder. And Shivani kind of gets a wild hair and brings up that, you know, the two of them have known each other for several years. You know, don't brag about it, Shivani. But, you know, he's not sure sometimes if he should even trust Larry, to which Zbyszko says he shouldn't. You know, I had a picture at this point of like they cut up to the booth and like Zbyszko pulls off his Disney polo and he's got an NWO shirt and he just takes Shivani out with a chair or something. That's my fantasy dreamland version of what happens next. But I thought that was funny and worth noting, anyways.
I like,
and I did have kind of a thought as this went along that there are not many holes in Dean Malenko's game, and it sounds like I'm bagging on Dean. I'm a big Dean fan. If there is one issue with Dean, is the thing about being a man of 1,000 holds is he kind of wants to show off all of his holds in his repertoire. And if there's a hole in his game, and now thinking back to Disco and Ray, there was some of this going on too. There's a lot of times he puts a hold on and he doesn't actually like wait for the other guy to fight his way out of the hold before he just lets it go and goes to the next spot that he's got in mind. I don't know. Did you guys notice that at all, or am I just being kind of nitpicky, Joe? What do you think?
So I had always kind of chalked that up more to an idea of he's keeping the pressure on, keeping them guessing what it is that he's going to do to keep working on them. But you know, I don't think that that's invalid either. I think it's probably more likely that just that particular thought didn't cross my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say you get that a lot in some of the modern wrestling now too, is where it seems like a lot of the matches are spot to spot to spot. The wrestlers trying to get their stuff. And I know AEW gets a lot of criticism for it because a lot of it is spot to spot to spot. But on the other hand, you know, Dean, at least in the process of doing it, is intimidating and is actually good at what he does. He's not, you know, they're not botches. You know, the thing that was missing from the Rey Mysterio match was there weren't a lot of botches in this one that I clocked. There wasn't, you know, the waist lock into the whoops, I lost Rey Mysterio and he goes flying across the ring. So, you know, this was a little bit better execution all around, even if it was a little get your stuff in the middle.
Yeah, and following up on that, I think also a big difference between what Dean is doing here and what you're talking about now, where there are a lot of matches that are literally just, hey, we got to get through all the spots. Dean is at least, even if he's not keeping it cinched in, he's at least cinching in the hold before he lets loose and moves to the next one. You see a lot today where, oh, you know, I got you down and I put you in an arm bar, but I just kind of literally put the move on and let it go. There is at least a little bit of work the hold and make it look like it does something before we just let go.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I think you make a good point there, Joe. If I was in a ring with Dean Malenko and he was just switching from hold to hold, I would probably be very intimidated myself. But yeah, just a thought that I had. We get to the point where we're going to head home. There's a sequence of like pin reversals that Dean and Kidman kind of do back and forth. That it's like it's different than, you know, the the schoolboy into the flip, and then they do the bridge up, that thing that you've seen like 100 times. This was a unique sequence. Kidman gets back on top for a bit, goes up and does his shooting star press finisher, which clearly this was a new thing because Shivani calls it a backflip or a reverse somersault through the air. But Dean's roll out of the way. Nobody's home. So, Kidman just eats shit onto the mat. And Dean goes for what I called a Gunther finish at the end of this, because clearly it's like, all right, I'm done with this match. Drops him into a brain buster, picks him up into a power bomb, then the butterfly suplex, and then the cloverleaf. So just dominance. And I think it kind of sends a message that he's clean. He's learned his lesson from last week's match with Rey, and the little, kind of playing around that he was doing with Rey Mysterio. No more screwing around as we get the win and we go to the 1-800-COLLECT replay. Kids, if you don't know what 1-800-COLLECT is or a collect call, ask your parents. But yeah, decent match. Pretty much a squash, but decent match in my opinion. Matt, was that about where you've kind of got it?
I was a little bit more positive on the match. I did want to point out we did not mention one of the cooler spots in the middle where there was a Irish whip into the corner that Kidman reversed into a handstand on the top rope, where Dean cleanly moved over and got him by the legs and did what we would call these days an Alabama slam. I don't remember what commentary called it, but it wasn't an Alabama slam and it wasn't a good description. But overall, I really did like the match. Like, I would have given it like a 3.5 star because it was a good technical match. It told a good story. Dean had good psychology, focusing on the knee, getting him around the post. Kidman got his stuff in. It looked believable when Kidman got his stuff in. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good match for a random throwaway match on Nitro that, like you said, was kind of a squash, but it also made both people look good coming out of it. And I also did, like you mentioned, I got a really big kick out of them not knowing what to call a shooting star press. He just went for his backflip.
Joe, what's your kind of final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think Matt and I are pretty much in agreement here. I said 3 stars. So I went back and I watched this show a second time after going. I mean, which is just probably good policy, generally speaking, as long as you have the time to do it for something like this. But mostly because, like, I watched the show the first time. I was really unimpressed with this show the first time that I watched it. We can get into what my thoughts were after the second watch later, but this match in particular, I enjoyed a lot more the second time around. I did get a laugh at the end. There was a very mixed reaction from the crowd at the finish. I think that the casuals were impressed by Dean and didn't understand that he was supposed to be the heel. Pretty sure that Purple Pants meemaw knew, though.
Strong thumbs down there for sure. She's a pro. She watches every week. You know that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like how Gunther sort of got turned face also, that he's not like a heel of like, mugging at the crowd and like low blows and this kind of stuff. He's just a dominant bully. And, that can be fun to watch too. It also occurred to me after this wrapped up, it must be even hotter this week than last week because that ref's shirt is soaked after that is done. And I don't know how many refs they've got, but like those refs have got to be just run into the back and switched into a fresh shirt because like they are sweated all the way through after every match. Somebody who's not sweating is Mean Gene Okerlund. That's a segue, folks. As we cut over to him, and he is interviewing Carolina Panthers All-Pro outside linebacker Kevin Green. And Joe, you're who I throw to for background on stuff. Has Kevin been around before what we started watching, or is this just showing up kind of out of nowhere?
Kevin Green was an integral part of the Mongo heel turn to join the Four Horsemen.
Okay.
Flair, I didn't watch all of the build-up, but my understanding is that Flair was upset with Mongo's commentary when Mongo was still at the booth. Didn't think that Mongo was putting him over enough, and challenged Mongo to find a tag team partner to wrestle himself and Arn Anderson. Mongo, of course, went into his, because this is 1996 and he definitely still had one, his Rolodex. Speaking of things that you kids can ask your parents about, and called up Kevin Green, bringing in a current NFL player to give him somebody that he could trust to deal with Flair. They brought Randy Savage in to train them because Flair and Savage have an ongoing issue over Flair stealing Elizabeth and also all of Macho Man's money, apparently. But at the pay-per-view, then Deborah McMichael, Steve Mongo's wife, had been at ringside. She ended up getting sent to the back. She emerged with a briefcase full of money that she presented to Steve. Inside the briefcase was a Four Horsemen t-shirt that Steve quickly closed the briefcase and gave Kevin Green a very friendly shot to the upper back with, so that Ric Flair could get the pin and the win.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that makes a bit more sense then. How many weeks ago was that? Was that like the go-home
this
show
was
before
at
the Bash?
Yeah, this is a Great American Bash. So we're about probably 5 weeks removed from that.
So I guess he's been stewing over it since then.
Yeah.
And
He did show up at one of the intervening nitros between the two pay-per-views to let us all know how upset he was with Mongo then too.
Gotcha. Well, he's also mad at Hulk Hogan. So we got to check in on that. We really are getting everybody's perspective on the Hulk Hogan situation in this show, down to NFL players. He says he was a Hulkamaniac. He took his vitamins, said his prayers. And apparently it made him an all-pro linebacker. So I don't know what his problem is. Like Hulkamania led you to success, clearly. So maybe keep your opinion to yourself, Mr. Green. But yeah, he's here because Mongo betrayed him. He wants to finish things before training camp. We were sort of laughing before the show. Apparently the idea, I don't know, in an NFL contract, as soon as you're a couple of hours from training camp, you can never leave until the season is done in February. So he has to settle this tonight, right now, or he's got to wait till after the football season to do it again, or to get some resolution.
Yeah, you're the property of the team until February at that point.
That's true. A lot of people don't know that about the mid 90s. It was indentured servitude, really, when you were on an NFL team.
Actually, in his promo, he said the line, because I typed it out. He said, "Training camp makes people crazy, and that starts on Thursday." So apparently he wasn't tied down once training camp started until later in the show. His agent must have called him in like, "Brother, you got to stop with this wrestling crap when the season starts." But I also wanted to throw out that there was a mention before he started talking about Hulk Hogan that Mean Gene dropped the Hollywood Hulk Hogan thing again. So we're working to get that name more into the fans' minds for getting the character set up. So it was a little thing because I believe Kevin Green called him Hulk Hogan, and Mean Gene corrected him and said, "No, Hollywood Hulk Hogan." So I think we might have had a script drop there, but.
Well, yeah, it definitely feels like I think it was Macho that dumped the Hollywood Hogan line, and you can kind of almost feel like Bischoff and the writers like, "Ooh, that's good. Let's use that going forward." Because I mean, that's how you got the NWO, so why not? So yeah, he's here. He's gotta settle his things with Mongo, but he's got to go to a plane in 2 hours, and Mongo's nowhere to be found. That's pretty much the sum of that story. We're headed to the break. We get a Harlem Heat vignette. Booker's talking about how they hired the Colonel to do a job, but he's trying to do the dastardly deed. I guess presumably talking about how he's set the Steiners up by mistake to face the Heat instead of the Nasty Boys last week. Rough and Ready isn't Rough and Ready in their opinion. Their opponents for this week. Harlem or Stevie Ray says the Colonel's trying to burn the candle on both ends. That's not what that means. The fire starts with the heat and it ends with the heat.
You missed it. I wrote the whole line down. It's the fire starts with the heat, ends with the heat, and tonight, rough and ready, you'll be smoked.
Yeah. See, I missed
Beautiful.
it. That's what brought it home, really.
Yeah, that tied the whole thing together. The candles at both end, and okay, I'm giving it a little bit more credit than it deserved, but it was a good line. It made me go, "Oh, that was pretty good."
Gotcha. What's also pretty good is over the commercial break, we get to see what the August issue of the WCW magazine is going to feature. The commentator asks if blood is really thicker than water when it's talking about an interview with the Steiners, which again, this is implying that, like, is there a fight between the two of them? They seem like they were okay in the match we saw earlier. But tag team breakups are in the air, so who knows? Plus revealing secrets about the Giant and collectible photos from Slamboree and the Great American Bash. So magazine's a little bit behind with its photos as it's going along. But we head out to the ring, come back from the break, head out to the ring. We've got Rough and Ready, Dirty Dick Slater, and Mike Enos. New names to me. Joe, Matt, any background with those guys?
So Mike Enos, you guys might know him better as one half of the Beverly Brothers from the WWF. He's a tag team specialist. He's been kicking around for about a decade. Wrestled a ton in AWA as the Destruction Crew with Wayne Bloom, who would go on to be the other half of the Beverly Brothers in their WWF run. Dick Slater, though, my note on this is all caps and bold. Really? Dick Slater in WCW in 1996? Dick Slater goes back to like the late 60s.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s. He's one of Dusty Rhodes' first tag team partners. Let's be fair. That's probably how he's kicking around here, is because of those kinds of relationships. Sure. Most of his career, I mean, Dirty Dick pretty much gives it away that he's a heel Southern wrestler outside of a couple of very brief face turns in his career. He's apparently been in WCW for like 6 years now, doing various gimmicks. And I after I made the note about really Dick Slater in 1996, I did a quick Google and I had to add a little note that says, oh, this is apparently the very end of his run because he's going to have a back injury here in a couple months that's going to force him to retire. So I was not as out of bounds, or I was not as off base in being surprised that he was still here at this point as I initially thought. But yeah, so I don't know. I hope we get to actually see a little bit more of him. He's not a guy that I've gotten to see very much of. He's at a very advanced stage in his career, so I'm not sure what we'll get out of him, but I'm guessing this match is a pretty good indication.
Well, honestly, he doesn't look for being that age. He looks like he's in pretty decent shape, and I don't know. In my opinion, there's an LVP on the Rough and Ready team, and it's not Dirty Dick Slater. But we'll get to that as we're coming along, because we need to get Harlem Heat out to the ring. And baby, there is no entrance music that is more perfect than that Harlem Heat music.
Yeah.
Delicious.
I had it in my notes. Harlem Heat with the rarely attempted recognizable theme song.
Yes.
I mean, when you get it right, and you feature it. So
that was Booker's music all the way through his WWF run. So
yeah, he broke, don't fix it. They're coming out with Sister Sherry, and this match is apparently for the tag team titles. So got some stakes built in, and we've got some drama because we've got Colonel Parker in a weird spot in this, because he is Rough and Ready's manager, but I guess he's the Harlem Heat's publisher, or he's got a relationship with the Harlem Heat too. So he's in a conflict of interest in this match as we're going into it. A promoter, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
He's the promoter for the Heat. Zbyszko says this is a win-win for the Colonel though, because whoever wins, he comes out on top. Yeah, I guess I thought before we'd roll into it, we'd talk a little bit about just Harlem Heat in general. This is our first chance seeing them in our watch through here. They've been referenced in the background, but this is our first time really seeing them out in the ring. I think that for me anyways, the Harlem Heat falls into the same kind of category as like the Luchadors and the NWO. That's like one of the things that WCW really, I think a WCW product that doesn't get the kind of credit that it should for WCW, for the company. Obviously, Booker T goes on to, great fame and everything going forward. So he gets plenty of credit, but just, I think they were a highlight during this era of, some other highlights on the company.
Yeah.
You guys have any thoughts on Harlem Heat?
Yeah. So I didn't really ever get to watch a ton of Harlem Heat because like we discussed in the first episode, I came in middle of 1998, so they had literally just broken up, or were just on the verge of breaking up, maybe. So this has been kind of a treat for me because they have been pretty heavily featured on the shows that led up to Bash at the Beach, and getting to see how, I mean, they are real life brothers, right? But getting to see how smoothly they work together as a team, how natural everything is between them. And they're clearly both guys who, in a tag team setting, have a great ability to work with any team that you put them with and really make things look good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I had the memories from Booker T at the end when we were, 5-time Spinneroonie, a little bit slower, a little bit older. So it was a delight for me to see young Booker T flying around doing the spots that he became his signature spots, but just being a lot more smooth in the ring. So it was really good to see both Harlem Heat, because I remember them from this time period. Harlem Heat was a big thing, and it was one of those things that was always fun to watch. But it was good to look back on it, not only to remember Harlem Heat, but to remember just how good, like, Stevie Ray doesn't look bad, but just how good Booker looks as the more athletic side of this tag team.
I did kind of chuckle that, like, in little vignette there, Booker's still doing the looking at his hand thing. So, it was pre 5-times, kids. It wasn't just the WWF that came from. But we get started here with a hot start. All four guys are brawling as Jimmy Jet, the referee, is like frantically trying to hand the title belts out of the ring as things get going here. Eventually, he gets control. We start the match off with Slater versus Stevie Ray. Ray boxes his ears that he tries to put Slater into a bear hug that even Zbyszko can't pretend looks like it hurts. It's kind of a gentle wrap around the waist. Just, start off with a little bit of close time together between the two of them. But this is sort of the start of, I think, kind of our second, I don't know, maybe it's just tag teams are having a tough time tonight, but this match just doesn't come together. I don't know if it's lack of chemistry, communication, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but this thing just doesn't flow at all and doesn't have a lot of logic to it either. Examples that I kind of put in, Enos gets control for a bit at one point before Stevie takes it back and then just potatoes him with a clothesline that is, I think, had a little more behind it than what they were really looking to have. Then he tags out to Booker, who goes for that sidekick that we've all seen him do like a million times and just cleanly airballs it right over the guy's head. No contact whatsoever. Enos sells it anyway, but then realizes that looks stupid, so he tries to get up and pretend like he didn't sell it. And this is I think emblematic of the issues that are going to be going on as this goes along. I don't know, Matt, but early parts of the match, any observations of maybe what's going on here, why this isn't working?
It just seemed like they weren't on the same page. I don't know if the match had been laid out in advance or if they were calling it in the ring, but there seemed to be a real disconnect. They were trying to work on some good tag team stuff, a little bit of double teaming, a little bit of isolating. They get Booker to the outside at one point, and they're both, clearly in view of the ref, but they're both over there giving him the business. At one point, and I don't know if we've gotten past it in the match at this point, but there's Booker gets backdrop slammed on the concrete right next to a kid in a wheelchair with his broken leg up in the air. And I'm like, oof, that could have went bad if you're like 1 inch to the left. But, for a disjointed mess, it was okay for a disjointed mess. I mean, it wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but, what did work worked, and what didn't work really, really, really didn't work.
Yeah, I think right before that spot you were talking about on the outside, the rough and ready guy goes like off of the apron to come down with like a double axe handle, and he's too far forward and he just lands his armpit like right on Booker T's shoulder, and that one made me wince because that's honestly, that's a good way to end up dislocating your shoulder or breaking your collarbone or something. Yeah, I don't know. Joe, anything you want to cover on this thing?
So we had the 4-man schmoz at the beginning. I made a note that we start out with the 4 going at it. We get down to Stevie Ray and Dick Slater, and they just kind of aimlessly like wander in the general direction of the rough and ready corner. While Enos very deliberately, slowly exits the ring so that he can't be in a place where he could just tag in. It's just like, I guess if I were the announcer, I might have tried to spin it as this an obvious sign of disrespect to give him that free opportunity to tag or something like that. I do get a kick as we go through this match. We keep going to the shots of Colonel Parker and Sherry at ringside, arm in arm, and he's always like leaning in to dab a little bit of sweat off of her or whisper something in her ear. And it's like, are you guys together? Are you mad at each other because the two teams are wrestling? Because we're really sending some mixed signals here.
Well, and Sherry kind of always looks mad, so that doesn't help.
That's fair.
And I mean, another thing I think that doesn't help is that this match suffers from what I've noticed is happening a lot in WCW, where everybody's a heel in this match. The Heat are trying to work as heels as it's going along. Maybe Rough and Ready didn't get that memo that they're supposed to be the good guys in this thing because they're doing heel stuff too. But I mean, the Heat are the ones that are very clearly the Heat or the heels, and they've got they're the champs, so they're the ones who are going to be leading this thing. So naturally, the crowd starts a heat chant as it's going along because. I guess they can see they're trying to urge Stevie Ray to get back up out of a hold or a double down or something like that. But yeah, everybody's back in the ring when we start heading to the finish. And even Shivani says he has no idea what's going on here. So he's echoing what we're all feeling as we're watching the match. Enos gets a power slam on Booker. But then I think this is the bit that you were talking about, Joe, because he bails out of the ring because he's not the legal man. And then right around this point, Colonel Parker, he's Rob Parker, right? I keep trying to call him Tom, but Colonel Rob Parker. He hops up on the apron to distract the ref so Sherry can come in and forcefully kiss Dick Slater to stop him from getting a cover on Booker. And this kiss is apparently just devastating because then Booker comes in and rolls him up into schoolboy for a 1, 2, 3. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a first. I can't say I've seen a smooch as a finisher before, but it sounds like something Gold Dust would try. But yeah, they start heading to the back. There's a pretty good shot where Steve like the Heat and Sherry are celebrating on the way back, but even Stevie kind of just looks like stunned, like the fuck just happened as they're walking to the back there. Stunned and annoyed, I guess is kind of how I wrote it down.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of felt the same way. In my notes, I wrote, Sherry kisses Slater. Now he's stunned. Roll up 3? Oh, that's a really stupid ending. I believe I called it a decent match betrayed by one hell of a Carney ending, and I gave it a very generous 0.5 stars.
Knows that about where you're at on it?
This is my second half-star match of the night. So my note was sexual assault as a finisher is a bold move.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the official match time on this is 7 minutes and 39 seconds. I was sure that I had been watching this thing for 20 minutes by the time it was done.
Yes. Yeah. The Heat or Rough and Ready seems to have a time distortion field of some kind that they're putting out. Because I guess that explains how Slater's still able to wrestle after this many years.
Yeah, I did look it up just a minute ago. He's 45 at this point, so not like ancient.
That's true. Fair enough.
But definitely, like I wouldn't have guessed that he was 45 looking at him though. He, especially in this era of wrestling, I wouldn't have guessed that he was 45 looking at him.
Yeah. I mean, 45 for a wrestler at this point in time looks like mid 60s. So he's doing all right. Like I said, I didn't hate his work as the match was going along.
No, I thought it was good.
Yeah. Enos was definitely the weak link out of that team. So next we got another vignette. We got Jimmy Hart and Meng. They're taunting Arn Anderson because they're going to be squaring off later in the show. And as we come back from break, Mean Gene is back with Kevin Green again. It's time. He's got to go to catch his plane, so he needs Mongo right now. I think this is when he rips his shirt off too. So a little bit more of the Hulkamania coming out there. Can't find Mongo. Don't know where he is. Probably ducking him. But yeah, he's got to go catch his plane. So their issue is going to have to wait till February.
Yes.
So honestly, it's the Panthers in the 90s. He probably October, November, he'll be available,
Oh, we'll get to that in the Mongo promo. I have a thing for that.
That's nice. Okay. We do get a nice shot of one of my favorite Disney rides, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I haven't, apparently it's a Guardians of the Galaxy thing now, which disappointing, but we head to the ring to start off a rare women's match in WCW from this era. We've got Medusa versus Malia Hosaka. Osaka is continuing the proud tradition of Polynesian people being billed as being Japanese in wrestling. And we've got Medusa, who famously came to WCW and threw the WWF women's title in the trash on Nitro. So we've got some women's wrestling legacy here coming into the match. And this is apparently also to set up a match at the Hog Wild pay-per-view between Medusa and Bull Nakano, because they're going to have a chopper versus chopper match. Basically, whoever wins gets to wreck the other one's motorcycle. And Bull Nakano, another big name in women's wrestling historically. So I was pretty pleased when I saw this match getting set up here. Pleasantly surprised, I guess, is maybe the word I would use. Matt, I know you mentioned you were not used to WCW having women's wrestling of any kind, and well, that's because it's going to probably not be around too much going on from here. And
I believe the technical term they used when announcing the match was ladies wrestling. So I enjoyed that one. I guess I can save I'll share my thoughts a little bit further into the match about some of Zbyszko's commentary, but yeah, we'll let the match live before we talk about Larry Zbyszko. So go ahead.
Sure. And I didn't really jot down the hold by hold here on this one. Mainly my observation from it is it's not necessarily the smoothest match in the world. It doesn't flow from move to move that well, but as they're working, like honestly, they do a pretty good job in there in the ring. Medusa especially has the physique and knows wrestling, moves as you're going along through it. I wrote down, basically if you took this versus like the very early kind of divas, when Trish was just learning and these kind of things, these two could wrestle circles around those ladies.
I was gonna say I put in my notes. Medusa took a really good ass whooping in this match. Like she was selling really well. Osaka was getting in a lot of good kicks. The hair throws, which I questioned if they should be illegal, throwing your opponent around by their hair. Pretty sure that
should not be. Mm-hmm.
That should not be in the rules, but they allowed it. But Medusa did take a pretty good ass whooping, got the fans into it. There was a full-on patriotic USA chant in the middle, so Medusa did something right.
Yeah. Malia is definitely mastered the ancient fighting art of hair-based offense, because that's her primary. If there's a ring psychology in the match, it's hair-based assaults are what she's using. At one point, she stands on Medusa's hair and pulls her by the arms, then goes into a kind of a camel clutch sort of thing, but pulling on the hair. And then starts just hair tossing Medusa around the ring. So yeah, again, apparently a proud tradition in WCW of just burying the ref and disregarding the rules as things are going along here.
Yeah, I mean, the hair-based offense is a very pre-2000s women wrestling trope.
For sure.
I will say I got a kick out of like the triple hair Beal spot. It's actually one of the few uses of the hair to create offense that kind of, I don't want to say makes sense, but it actually looks cool while you're doing it.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And Medusa gets a comeback in at this point. She drops some stiff kicks into Malaya and then shows off she is also trained in the ancient art of hair fu as she tosses Malaya around by the hair as well. I should be careful. I don't want to get canceled like Zbyszko because as this is going along, Larry living up to again his 50s guy at the cookout, locker room talk, I think is a term that gets tossed around.
I was gonna say I have a lot of the highlights in here. At one point he mentions that they need to keep it in the kitchen. There's another moment where he says, when you find a woman that can keep its mouth shut, you should take it home.
Such a last.
Let's see, where's the last one in here? Oh, I don't know. All I can say is that Zbyszko was both obviously giant. He's doing a good job playing the, like you said, the backwoodsy heel announcer, but man, the misogyny was just dripping throughout this entire thing. My final comment included, it was a match. Holy crap, Zbyszko is the world's biggest misogynist. Because like I honestly rewound it a couple times because I was like, there's no way he just said that. And sure enough, pure to 90s television, yeah, he did say that. Like that line about if you find one that can keep its mouth shut, take it home. I was like, good gravy. Like that is beyond the pale bad. But oh Lord, Zbyszko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My note is Larry goes full chauvinist, and it's really awkward.
Yeah. Shivani tries to get him to back off of it a little bit too as they're going through, but in kind of a Larry kind of way. So We hit the 1 minute mark, so our favorite little
Dynamite.
tiny stick of dynamite is going to show up down in the corner. Things pick up a little bit of speed in the ring too. The ladies trade missed high flying maneuvers coming off of the corner. But we get the finish as Medusa gets a pretty bridge of Osaka over into a pin, and Osaka graciously elects not to put her foot on the ropes, despite the fact that she very visibly could have. And gets the 1, 2, 3. And man, I mean, fans love Medusa. She gets up, she's mugging to the crowd. They're going nuts for her as we head over into hour 2. So, Joe, kind of final thoughts on Medusa versus Osaka here.
I called it a 1.5 stars. It's solid enough. They don't get a ton of time to breathe. They make the most of what time they have. I thought the finish or the lead up to the finish hurt the match a little bit, where the best offense was just waiting for the other woman to miss a move.
Right.
I didn't think that was the best look for either of them. But I think we can see that we're pretty clearly at a time where women's wrestling is trying to bridge the gap between what it's traditionally always been, which is kind of the sideshow, the opportunity to go and, you know, get up and go get some popcorn and a beer or a soda, depending on how old you are, and what it eventually finally is allowed to become within the last 15 years or so, where the women are putting on every bit as good a show as the men in most cases, and being rewarded for doing so.
Shit, I mean, you watch a Raw today, the women are the only ones that ever really work consistently. So,
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I didn't really rate the match. You know, it was a nice change of pace from what you get from a lot of mainstream women's wrestling around this time. There was no mud pit, there was no jello, it wasn't in bra and panties, it wasn't a bikini match. So it was good. I struggled because the commentary was very distracting, I won't lie. I did have several good notes that, you know, Osaka has a pretty mean spin kick. Some of the sequences were really good, but Zbyszko was doing an amazing job of taking me out of it. And like, I didn't end up giving it a rating on my paper. I'd probably, in hindsight, probably followed about a star. For what, I mean, it's a star for a wrestling match in general. For what women's wrestling is at this point, you could probably be a little bit more generous because it is a very good women's wrestling match. It's probably like a 2.5, 3-star women's wrestling match, but I had a real hard time not being taken out by Zbyszko. And he's done this several times, not with women's matches, but just by odd things he's been saying, like in Mysterio matches too, where we're talking about how he's powered by jalapenos and a few other things. So obviously it's commentary from a different time, that when I was that age, I would have probably been like, that's really funny. But as a 40-year-old, I'm like, yikes, this is very, very, very cringe. So, you know, for the match itself wasn't bad, but the commentary really drug it down into the ground.
Yeah, and I think you kind of bouncing back to your kind of earlier point about it not being, you know, a bra and panties evening gown match or something like that. Like, Medusa is an athlete. Like, she is not a pinup model. She's not going to be the centerfold in Playboy. She is a female athlete, and she looks every bit the part of it. It's almost, I mean, it's kind of a shame that she, you know, is from this era, that she, you know, she could have done some really interesting things if she was in a WWE today or something like that. But I mean, also, maybe we don't get to where we're at with it today without pioneers like Medusa sort of breaking walls down. So, we're in hour 2 at this point. Bischoff comes in screaming hot, as he always does, as the fireworks are going off. He talks about how they're up high, and they bring this up a few different times as the show goes along. They don't elaborate on where they are, but like, both of them are acting like they're scared they're going to fall off of wherever they've got them commentating from. Yeah, I wasn't sure what the deal was there. They weren't talking about this last week on the show, so maybe they must be in a new spot.
Maybe they put them on the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be. I didn't hear them just suddenly drop at some point, but that would make sense. Um, and yeah, we go back to talking about what we've basically been talking about in every show thus far. Where are the outsiders at? What are they doing? We go to the break. Arn gets his opportunity to respond to Meng with his vignette. He mentions that head up, Meng can probably eat any man alive, which I thought that was a good line. But check the Horseman's record on Monday night. It's unparalleled. Arn, unsung hero of Nitro as we've been coming along here. And, honestly, if I worked out really hard, I think I could get, if I got to Arn Anderson's body type, I'd be like, yep, looking pretty good for a 40s, 50s guy. But we come back from the break and we see that the outsider tailgate party has relocated from the parking lot to up on the WCW sign at the top of the MGM studio. And they are covering the letters up with sheets that are spray painted NWO. Oh, yes, as we see in the background of Joe there. Sorry, I just totally screwed that up. Yes,
That's
we
cool.
get our sheets put up there. Heenan says that they're taking their time and going slow because that means they have a plan. He doesn't think the Hulk Hogan turn happened overnight. This is all part of a big master plan. And there's no way 3 guys are going to take over WCW. There's got to be more. But yeah, honestly, this is what I was asking for last week. This is what I wanted the NWO to be doing. Like, come here, invade, screw things up. Like, this is what I wanted them to be doing last time around. They put up their sheets. It looks kind of low rent, but that kind of works because, there's some renegades from outside trying to take over the company. They sit down. Kevin pops open a can of some kind of cocktail up there on the thing, and they settle in to watch the show. Opinions, guys, on the NWO invasion, taking over and covering up the letters on WCW. Effective or cheap, Matt?
I was gonna say I'm with you on this one. This is more of what I wanted last week, to have some sort of bigger tomfoolery where the NWO is getting it up on WCW than what they had. To your point on the production value or lack thereof, I have it written in my notes. Hall and Nash are here, and they're covering up the WCW signage with cheap sheets with the letters NWO written on them in marker ? So, like, does this fit their "we're outsiders, we're the rogue invasion"? Sure. Would I have appreciated it more if it didn't look like they bought dollar store sheets and Sharpies? Yeah, probably. But it was at least good to see them doing something with it. But I would have liked it to look a little bit less low budget. Although knowing what we know about WCW at the time, they were kind of operating at low budget, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I think this
agree?
I think this is a situation where if the merchandising side of the operation had the foresight to see how big this was gonna be, I think this would have been the perfect opportunity to go ahead and display the NWO logo.
Yeah.
Right. I think it actually might have worked if it had the NWO script instead of just being a big block N, a block W, and just a circle for an O. If it was something that was actually distinctive in some way, and has kind of that, like, the thing that works about the logo that we're going to get to see hopefully soon. I don't know exactly when they bust that out, but the thing that works about the logo is the graffiti feel. And this NWO is very much like the kids who don't have any actual good art supplies trying to make something look as nice as possible with the things they have on hand.
Yeah. And I was going to say, to your point on the merchandising people having their things together, I I can't remember if it was in 83 Weeks or if it was in Say Hello to the Bad Guys, the book that covers this period in WCW's history. But when it does finally come down to designing the t-shirts and being ready for their burst big time, putting it on television and getting it ready to sell, it was commented that it was a real rush and it was like an overnight job where, you know, a random designer just happened to put that logo together. Like I tried to Google what the NWO font was last night. It's not an actual font. It's just something a graphic designer came up with at the 23rd hour, headed into their first time trying to sell merchandise, to where it was just, you know, catching lightning in a bottle, where they designed what ends up being just about the perfect logo for what the NWO was. But it would have been nice if we had had it heading into this round, because this would have been a great launch to their merch sales, is if you were ready for this moment.
Yeah.
So it's a missed opportunity, but honestly, at this point, they didn't really realize just the scope of what they had. So it makes sense.
Yeah. And to be clear, I wasn't trying to imply that they should have known what they had on their hands, even necessarily in week 2.
How could
but
you?
Man, if they could have, holy moly, this would have been, I think it might have been perfect.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I mean, obviously that logo has some staying power. Just well, sorry, my video's backwards. Yeah, over there.
I feel left out. I don't have an official NWO logo anywhere.
I'm just in a quarter zip, you know. It's cold in my house and I'm old, so
you have it in the background, except for your head's covering up the W, so it counts.
Well, anyway, we're heading back to the ring because we got Arn Anderson versus Meng coming up. Last we see of our outsiders is flashing the click sign up there in the background. And I noted that as Arn is coming down to the ring, he's got to be wondering at this point what exactly the point of being in the Horseman is for him. Because to run it down, at Bash at the Beach, Benoit left him behind to get chokeslammed by the Giant. You know, last week, he's out here wrestling Sting all by himself. Everybody, all 4 horsemen are there. They just don't come out to help. And then today, he's on his own against Meng. Like, Benoit's there. He could be out there to back him up. No backup for Arn Anderson. So, you know, if I'm Arn, I'm like, the fuck, guys? Is this just like the 4 Horsemen just a social club that I'm a part of at this point? Like, seriously. But yeah, we get out here. We establish early that basically the narrative of this is Arn's going to try to technical wrestle, but Meng just has a power advantage over him as it's going along. Arn goes into tries to tie him up in a rear waist lock, and Meng just sort of pries his arms open and then kicks him. And that's, again, we're in another heel versus heel match. So, you know, Arn is going to be working as the face, but, you know, the crowd's kind of not on board with it as it's going along. And we get a promo for Hogwild again, where Bischoff mentions apparently like 10 or 15 of the WCW crew are going to get on motorcycles and drive out to the rally themselves, which I think I saw or heard on 83 Weeks. They actually did. So that's not just a thing that he's making up. But yeah, I don't know. The thoughts, Matt, I guess, on this thing that we keep seeing of like we've got heels and they're fighting other heels because all we've got in WCW are heels, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it working in this match as it's going along?
No. I believe we talked about it before we started recording. I lost the plot during this match. If you look back at my notes, a lot of them are about how annoying Jimmy Hart's loudspeaker is and not about what's going on in the ring. I have several notes. Jimmy's loudspeaker is annoying. Someone needs to take that loudspeaker away from Jimmy. Maybe we just disable the button that makes the thing go really loud. But, you know, as for the heel versus heel, it kind of tells a story of where WCW's booking has been. They've gone through a lot of bookers, and at this point, it feels like they kind of don't have a good through line on who are their heels, who are their faces, who's facing who. They may think the Horsemen are more tweeners than they're supposed to be because Flair's kind of a tweener. The fans love him. He's supposed to be a heel, but it's working as a face, whereas Arn is clearly a heel and doesn't have the Flair charisma to work as a face. So, this match was kind of a mess. I warned you coming into it. I didn't have great notes about it because it lost me. I didn't really care until just about the end. So, yeah, it's not working here. It hasn't worked the other times we've gone heel versus heel tonight. So hopefully this is something we move away from with a little bit smarter booking once the NWO settles in and they're doing a little bit different run on booking. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty emblematic. When Arn is sort of making his comeback at one point in the middle of it, and his face comeback is to take Meng's ankle into the post with that whole thing. It's like, I don't know. It's like I don't know if the crowd doesn't want to boo Meng or doesn't want to cheer for Arn, but the crowd's just not reacting. And match wise, technique wise, it's fine. It's a good match. They don't botch, which puts them ahead of most of what's been on the card so far. Everything's kind of landing. It's a decent brawl, but I don't know. It just doesn't get sold.
Well, and you were talking about how there wasn't a lot of botches, which there weren't. The end, and I don't know if we'd made it this far or how much more in depth your coverage was, but that ending super kick that Meng hits is just nasty. It looked like it caught Arn flush. But the only botch that I spotted was after Meng delivered that kick, he kind of wanders around like he's lost. And I think off camera, the ref reminds him, hey, you're supposed to be pinning him. And then kind of wanders over and just lazily covers him up. So, it was a mess from booking. The ending was a little bit of a mess. It was a match and it filled time. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good.
Yeah. This is 11 minutes of kind of wandering around. Was one of my notes. I wonder if part of the reason that Meng looks lost after he hits the crescent kick to put Arn down is I don't know if he's beaten anybody with that move since he was in the WWF 7 years earlier. He uses the Tongan death grip, right? That's his finisher. I don't know if maybe he was debating whether to go ahead and put it on, or exactly where the wire got crossed there. There were a couple of little things during the intros, though, that I really appreciated, as we've talked about a few different times, specifically with Flair, but we've had a couple other situations where we've pointed these things out. The first one is that while Arn's coming to the ring, if you watch as he comes out, he takes a look over at where Hall and Nash have put the NWO over the WCW logo, and he gets a really just disgusted look on his face. I thought that was a nice touch on his part to do a little thing to sell the fact that, hey, these are the real bad guys here. We may not be role models, but at least we're not them. And the other thing that I got a kick out of that was a little thing that you have to dig a little bit deeper, I think, to appreciate, is as Jimmy and Meng are coming to the ring, Jimmy's on the megaphone like Jimmy always is, and Heenan says, "Shut up, Jimmy," which is a really, really nice callback to the fact that since they both showed up in the WWF at about the same time in 84, 85, Heenan always kind of looked down at the other managers, but Jimmy was the one that he really he had no patience for whatsoever that whole time. And so I thought it was kind of fun that we're continuing this in that little way, more than a decade later.
Yeah, speaking of fun with Jimmy Hart, I did appreciate when Meng puts Arn to the outside and Jimmy goes to attack him, and Arn has to pretend like it hurts. that, you'd think after this much time, Jimmy could at least, look convincing while he's attacking somebody. But, he's doing his best.
Yeah, and right after this is maybe the second biggest botch in the match, where Meng goes to pull Arn into the ring by the hair, but Arn doesn't really have any hair to pull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that'd be about as effective as it would with you and me, Matt. Yep. Yeah, it's a brawl. They trade punches, they trade kicks, they trade chokes at one point as it's going along. But yeah, eventually the Barbarian comes out from the back at some point. Arn gets his little bit of comeback because he's the face in the match. But and he does actually start getting the fans behind him at that point. But then Jimmy hops up on the apron, distracts the ref. Barbarian clotheslines Arn over the back of the head. Meng hits him with that crescent kick, forgets that was the finish, and then drops down for the pin. So just making Arn look even worse at the end there. But blissfully, this match ends and we head to commercial. Final scores, guys. Joe, you can go first on this one.
Boy, this is my third half-star match of the night.
Mhm.
It like I said, it's 11 minutes of just kind of wandering around. There's nothing particularly bad in it. Like you both have pointed out, it's solid work overall, but there's no heat, there's no real story. And to be perfectly honest, even with the entire Dungeon of Doom being around and the horseman being down Flair, I did not in a million years see Meng winning this match.
Yeah.
Guess,
Arn's basically a main event jobber at this point, from what we've seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say my notes basically said it wasn't the most exciting match. I think my ratings floor is probably a 0.5, so that's about what I gave it. I didn't want to go a lot lower. Honestly, outside of the commentary, the women's match actually interested me more than this match did, which says something about how awkward the heel versus heel and just how the match was pieced together.
No, I mean, you're going to end up in the same bucket as Zabisco if you keep saying things like that. My wife's going to come find you. We come back from commercial, and Gene is with Mongo, who supposedly just got here. He was, I guess, chasing his dog around, or Deborah's dog around, so he couldn't get here. But yeah, he takes some time to talk some trash on Kevin Green for leaving. I think he makes a pretty good point when he says he's a professional now, so if Green wants to fight, needs to sign his name on a dotted line, and then he'll have his match at that point. But it's good heel stuff because he knows the face is gone, so he can come out and talk shit now. Then we go to, I think, the real highlight of this segment when Deborah starts talking. My conclusion is that Deborah is apparently the proto Karen. She's the Karen on which all other Karens are modeled. She talks about how the Panthers are a farm team, and her husband lasted 15 years in the league because he didn't let little punks push him around. All the way through this, Gene is trying really hard not to laugh and not succeeding. She rattles off a bunch of Mongo's records and then says Green needs to go back to Carolina where all those farm boys are. Carolina, famously a farm state. Yeah, so that's a segment that happened. But I think a nice little bow on this kind of runner storyline that they've had going through it here. Matt, you seem to disagree.
I was trying to take notes and it just ended up falling out to Deborah delivering ... a promo, I guess. And then my final thought was, I feel bad for Gene. He has been trying to corpse his way through this, and at the end, he can't even help it anymore. Dead into the camera, laughing, trying to throw it back to the commentators. So, it was funny for what it was, but man, that was that was a mess. And I got to give Gene credit. He made it way further into that than I did before I started laughing. But wow, what is the Carolina Panthers? Is that a farm team? That just slayed me. Like, it was so dumb that I couldn't help but laugh.
Oh boy. Yeah, my first note, Mongo not good at math or finance, because he's still counting the money in that briefcase and he's had it for over a month.
Yeah.
But so yeah,
Maybe he just doesn't trust banks.
There's that. On the topic of Deborah's, as you put it, promo question mark. She talks about, you know, the Panthers being a farm team, and they're definitely not the Chicago Bears.
No.
So I went and I looked it up. In 1996, the Chicago Bears go 7-9 and miss the playoffs. The Carolina Panthers go 12-4 and make the NFC Championship. So that doesn't look good. She makes up a bunch of records that Mongo supposedly holds. Almost none of them are actually records that Mongo held. She did get it right. He officially held the record for sacks by a defensive tackle, because there were a whole bunch of guys that played before him that probably had more sacks, but the sack wasn't an official statistic until 1982. So, you know, she's technically correct, which some people would say is the best kind of correct. And my favorite part was, I don't even know how many Pro Bowls my husband made, because he made so many. Two Pro Bowls, which is really impressive. To make the Pro Bowl one time is really impressive, but I guess not being good at math runs in the relationship.
I was sitting here going, Mongo no count money, Deborah no count Pro Bowl. That's all I could think of the whole time.
Look, she was told there would be no fact checking, so
I mean, to be fair, I'm probably the only person that bothered.
That's your one, Adam. That's your one.
Coming out of that, we'll hit what I have no doubt is going to be the highlight of the show for everybody, because we have Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero. These are two staples of this era, and honestly all the way through WCW until they, head over across the street to the other company. It's very early in their careers at this point, so it's kind of an interesting perspective on it that you can see as we're going in here. And like, even Heenan knows it. Like, Heenan, without a bit of spin on it at all, is just into the mic like, this is going to be a great match. And I think that was pretty much what I was thinking too. I was psyched for this when I saw that this was the next one coming up. Benoit's coming out looking grouchy, as he always does. That shiner's healed up most of the way at this point, so he doesn't look quite as rough. Eddie's got that big flat-shouldered red rhinestone jacket with a lot of fringe, so looking class on his way out to the ring. But yeah, I mean, I was marking for this one when I saw it coming up on the show. I'm sure you guys were the same.
Yeah, like I didn't know, because I didn't look at the card beforehand, but when they announced Benoit versus Guerrero, I was like, that got me back, because Arn and Meng kind of pulled me down. The Mongo McMichael thing, while funny, I was kind of still not only half paying attention. And then I heard what was next, and like, I was up in my seat ready to go from the time I heard him. I think I heard him drop the line "human Wolverine," so we're still workshopping that rabid Wolverine.
Close. We're getting there.
They did call him Rabbit a few times, but they didn't connect the dots between Rabbit and Wolverine. So we're still workshopping it. But yeah, I was ready to go from the time the bell rang.
Yeah. Same here. No notes.
Yeah. I appreciate that at the start of the match, but even at this early point in his career, Benoit knows what's up, and he tells the ref to go check Eddie's boots for foreign objects. This is nominally to create a distraction for a kick, but let's be real. He knows Eddie Guerrero. He knows he's got some kind of tricks up his sleeve. And yeah, it starts out savage series of kicks, punches, headbutts on Eddie. They go into a nice series of reversals that they go back and forth where Eddie gets out of kind of an inverted suplex looking thing. Then Benoit gets out of a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Then Eddie reverses a power bomb into this high arm drag that takes Benoit all the way out to the floor. Just beautiful. I mean, like executed crisp. I think by this point, I could be wrong. I think they've been working together either in training before this. They're clearly pretty familiar with each other as they're going along through this, but I mean, it's just neat as a pin as it's going along.
Yeah.
As far as the structure of the match, and I mean, I think this is part of what was really impressive of it about it for me. Story-wise, structure-wise, this is as plug simple of a heat match as it is. Like a little bit of shine on the face at the beginning, heel takes over, is dominant the whole way through, pop spots here and there that the heel crushes, go home, or the face makes his big comeback, go home. The simplest match structure. They've been doing it for as long as there's been professional wrestling. But when you've got two people of this level of talent, pros of this level of talent in there, it covers up the seams and it makes it work in a way that you just can't take your eyes off of it as it's going along.
Yeah, and like even in the middle of it, I started noticing from Guerrero specifically some spots that go through the rest of his career. Like at one point after they put Benoit to the outside and did that top rope splash, Benoit rolls back in and Eddie gets up on there and does his trademark grabbing on and doing the over the top rope senton splash, rolling back to his feet. And I was like, you know, it's a little thing, but like I set up and went, oh, I know that one, because that's just, you know, at this point it's not the thing you're used to seeing, but that's just Eddie through a through line through his career had those spots that you just knew were coming, kind of like Flair. But at the same time, it was just really nice to see it in what was already at that point shaping up to be a really good match.
Yeah, I took very few notes during this because I was just enjoying it that much. The main one that I have, you mentioned the fact that, you know, you could tell that they've been working together. Yeah, you can tell exactly how familiar and comfortable they are with each other. Everything is really crisp. It's really snug, but you can tell that it's 100% safe. They trust each other implicitly. It's probably not an exaggeration to say that these guys have wrestled each other hundreds of times at this point between Japan. I don't know if Benoit ever wrestled in Mexico, but if he did, I guarantee that they probably wrestled there. For most of the year prior to this, they were working together in ECW. So yeah, this is taking advantage of two guys that you know are gonna put on the best show that you can possibly get from anybody that's here tonight.
And it also kind of highlights just how close Eddie and Benoit were, because, you know, they worked together all these years at this point, and by the end, when Eddie, you know, eventually has his tragic heart attack and passes away, that's one of the big catalysts that a lot of people point to, is when things kind of flipped for Benoit and things started falling apart because he didn't have Eddie anymore to fall back on. So, you know, obviously these two had a storied history at this point that just kept moving forward as their friendship built up into their WWF days until, you know, Eddie passed and things kind of fell apart for Benoit. So it's kind of a beautiful thing to look back on too.
Yep. And that's not to say there aren't some, you know, every now and then little things that you can see that could have been executed better. There's a point where Benoit goes for either like a crab or a lion tamer like maneuver where Eddie's so far up, he's basically just standing on his head. You know, but that the purpose of that is to set it up for Eddie to get like his heels around his head and spin to reverse his way out of it. Which is one of the hope spots that he gets that Benoit shuts down by, I wrote, trying to power bomb him through the damned ring.
Yeah.
Because he drops this power bomb that like bounces Benoit up in the air. It comes down so hard.
I had it in my notes. Benoit gives Eddie an incredibly crisp power bomb that looked like it hurt like hell.
Yeah. There's a weird spot. Benoit gets him into the chin lock. Presumably, I think they're calling the end of the match, the set of moves that they're going to do before they go home at that point. Unlike Dean, who lets a hold go, but then is going into another hold, Benoit just kind of lets him go and stands up. But that sets us, heads us into our going into the finish. He heads up to the top rope. Eddie goes up there, gets him the superplex. Things go to, the chops and punches being traded back and forth, which thankfully were before the era of the bouye like they do now. They're just kind of going at each other. Benoit gets him up into a power bomb that Eddie Hurricane Rana's over the top rope, which I think we can finally put to bed that the over the top rope thing for DQ is not anything anymore. Although, also clearly there are just no rules in WCW and you can do whatever you want. So maybe Jimmy's just wagging his finger at them from in the ring. But they get to the outside. Benoit takes Eddie's head off of the stairs, but following up on our angle that we set up earlier in the show, Dean Malenko comes running out from the back, bounces Benoit's head off the ring post, setting things up for Eddie to beat the 10 count. And rare, at least, maybe not so much back then, but nowadays, like a match actually ending with a count out is very unusual. But I think it does a good job of not, taking any heat off of Benoit, and kind of planting the seed for the issue between Dean and Benoit going into their pay-per-view match. So I think a great finish to a great match is where I'm at with it. Joe, I'm assuming you're somewhere in that neighborhood.
3 1/4. This is the match of the night. The finish is good, but it's not decisive in any way, which is good. Like you said, we're not taking any heat from anybody. The thing that I had that I took note of there at the very end is I wondered for just a second if the large man in the blue shirt and the cutoff shorts was going to try and jump in the middle of the match. Like he is really, really, really worried that Eddie's going to get jumped from behind by Benoit, and just I was, like I said, I was a little worried that he was going to stick himself in between the two of them or something.
Yeah. Risk of not having that barrier there between the fans and the crowd. I mean, ask Roddy Piper about how sometimes that turns out.
Yeah, and in my notes I put we covered the sequence of the outside, Eddie's head going off, and then I put the ref has a waking seizure and doesn't notice Malenko absolutely wipe out Benoit, turns around and goes, well, now Benoit's out too, and just starts counting. I felt pretty much where Joe was. I had it rated at 3.25 for the match itself. My notes were good match, kind of betrayed by the angle finish. I get it. You're protecting both guys. You're setting up your another match in the future. But with a match that had been that high quality from start to finish, I would have rather seen an actual true finish. It's not something that's overused this time frame like it is nowadays, where you can't get a clean finish on Raw or SmackDown to save your life. Sometimes not even on premium live events do you get clean finishes. So, with the finish included, I kind of knocked it down into the 2.5 range. Wasn't the match's fault. Wasn't Chris or Eddie's fault. It just, it felt like a little bit of a wet fart having it end on that kind of a count out. But I see the value in it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely a TV match finish rather than a pay-per-view one. Going out of the match, they're heading into the commercial break, and Bischoff says that they're running out of time, running out of answers, and running out of observations. And I noted that is kind of a damning commentary on their commentary in general. But we get our vignette again. We've got Jimmy again, because damn, he's just all over the show. I think he's getting paid by the hour on this one. And Uncle Bubba, they're talking smack on Lex Luger. Jimmy says that when Luger was managed by Jimmy, only good things ever happened. But now look what's happened to him. I mean, debilitating eye injury, massive concussion. You know, he's got a point. We head to our Glacier commercial again. I've heard it enough times now that the way he says Glacier, he hits the G really hard, and that's starting to bother me. So I'm really psyched that we get to watch this 2 times a week from now until friggin' September when Glacier shows up.
It wouldn't bother you as much if inside of you beat the heart of a warrior, but you know, you'll get there.
No, my blood runs cold. So next round of the game. Street Fighter characters. Who are you going to rip off from Street Fighter to bring to WCW?
You know, since we're just going with the all out, I think I would take Blanca. Give me a green furry guy with electricity and we'll be good to go.
Sure. Yeah, that could be his finisher.
Oh man, I wasn't prepared for this. I mean, look, I'm like the worst at fighting games, but I was a Chun-Li main because at least I could spam kicks. So I mean, let's develop the women's division a little bit.
Yeah, Chun-Li versus Medusa. I'm here for it. This one I went sort of the other direction. I mean, Zangief is basically a wrestler already, so just bring Zangief out and you've got that covered. But yeah, we're headed to the main event now. Without too much further ado, Luger versus Bubba Rogers with Jimmy Hart. At this point, they've got the NWO sheets down, so WCW has saved face. But yeah, as they're heading to the ring, Bischoff is continuing to lament the absence of all of WCW's big stars, but WCW's not going anywhere. As Luger comes out and flexes his way to the ring, carefully doesn't flex too hard. You don't want to pop that retina back off.
Well, yeah, and I wrote in my notes, oh crap, kayfabe is dead. Luger's retina looks really attached here. They could have at least put an eye patch on him or done something to sell the fact that his eye was messed up. Nah, it's fine. He's got perfectly good eyes. No black eye, no nothing. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
I said that out loud while I was watching. I was like, can we put the eye patch on or something? However, the announcers do walk it back just a little bit during the intro. They say it was a nearly detached retina.
Nearly.
Yeah, it's like a grade 1 detached retina. Not that bad.
A minor detached retina.
My guess was somebody realized that this was a more severe injury than they were trying to make it out to be, and that they needed to make a change. I don't know.
Hey, that's not cool. You're burying Lex. Like, this is his chance to be a superhero that he's got a Wolverine healing factor. He just recovered so fast from his injury. Not cool, guys. Let Luger shine. We sneak in one more commercial break, which is almost a WWF move or WWE Today move. Except if it was doing that, the entrances would have taken like 10 minutes and then the commercial break would have happened. But yeah, we come out from the break. Bubba gets some early offense in. Luger jumps in, gets some of his stuff, I wrote, which his stuff, as this match goes along, consists of clotheslines and forearm smashes. I'm not going to pretend like I like Lex Luger's work. I'm just going to say that from the jump. I am not a Lex Luger fan historically. I'll give him a fair shake when he does a good job as it's going along. But just over history, I've never really gotten it. I think I don't know that he's ever really gotten, full potential as he's been going along either. But this match doesn't do anything to kind of change my mind.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're not going to get any arguments here, I don't think.
No, I guess I had kind of I don't even know how to phrase it, a historical shine on Luger, where I thought going into this, because this is the first time I've seen Luger since we started rewatching this, outside of his brief appearance before his retina exploded and his brain got CTE. I had this historical shine in my mind that Luger was good in the ring, and I was quickly reminded, nope, that's actually not true.
Yeah.
I mean, every time it was like a hot tag. Every time he got his stuff in, it was like Bubba's been beating him up for a while, and now here comes the hot tag, clothesline, forearm, up the heel's back in control. I guess I actually got a nice laugh. I think at one point the commentator said that Uncle Bubba was focusing on his injured retina at one point, and I was
Right.
like,
Yes.
yeah, and I was like, that's pretty good. Uncle Bubba's really got that skill if he's going straight after the retina.
Yep. Ring psychology is what that's called. Yeah, and it doesn't help that like it feels like there was something off in terms of their chemistry or their timing at the start of the match, because when Luger is doing the face gets his offense in part, he keeps having to change what move he's trying to do like in the middle of it. There's a spot like the thing I'm thinking of, he goes like, it's obviously meant to be Luger hits the ropes, comes back for a clothesline, but like Bubba's not in the right spot. So Luger like just kind of gently grabs him by the back of his shirt to throw him outside, which, good improv, but like it doesn't look right. But to be fair, he does only have one eye. So he's doing a great job for being a Cyclops. Bubba comes back in. Luger captures him with a sequence of devastating wrist locks that only feels like it takes 10 minutes to get out of. Before Bubba eye pokes him, psychology, setting up Luger's running forearm with the steel plate. Right? That used to be his finisher, if you don't remember that. So I don't know. I guess he's put enough dents in it now that it doesn't just completely knock you out at this point. But yeah, I mean, Bubba's back, jumps back up on top for a while. I did note that like it's funny that every time Luger gets hit, he sounds like he's been shot, like just immediately. Like there is such a thing as overselling it a little bit. But you do what you're good at. There's a bit where I don't know if it was intended to be this way or if Bubba just kind of improv'd it, but he like goes for a vertical suplex, but then just sort of drops him on his face. More psychology. Right about that, we start cutting to the outside and we see a limo pulling up with the outsiders popping out to sit on the trunk for a while and watch the end of this match. Opening of the match, Joe. I'm being pretty mean. Are you going to come and defend Lex's honor here, or Uncle Bubba's honor?
It's rough. It kind of looks like it's the first time they've ever worked together. I can't imagine that's the case, but that's the impression that I get. Look, I mean, Bubba's not the greatest worker in the world, but he almost always looks better than this.
Right.
And okay, I will give Lex this much credit. When he is with the right partner, he can do some really good stuff. I don't know that the right move for Lex is a really agile big man who, while he doesn't have the same physique, might legitimately be able to outpower him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. In my notes, I had a lot talking down about Luger like you did, but I also in my notes I gave I won't call him Boss Man. Uncle Bubba. I gave Uncle Bubba a lot of credit because he's doing a lot of work here trying to hold the match together. Like,
I agree.
Luger's running wild, being crazy, and Bubba is using psychology, trying to tell a story, trying to recover from all of Luger's botches or misses or everything that's going on. So Bubba comes off as kind of the old hat here that's holding the match together, and Luger's kind of coming off as the young hotshot that's doing young hotshot stuff but messing it up. So yeah, I don't know. So some of my mental shine on Luger is gone now. So
mm-hmm. I did want to call out. Speaking of agile big men, there's a spot where Bubba hits a spinning wheel kick, which I never saw that move coming out of that guy. But yeah, then he kind of follows that up with what I'm going to call not exactly ideal execution for a camel clutch like maneuver, where he's just sort of leaning over Lex and just kind of covering his face. Like if he had a chloroform rag, then picture perfect. But otherwise, I have some notes.
I did. So while the match has been rough, this is some of the better commentary that Heenan and Bischoff have done, I think.
Okay.
I appreciate, especially as they're bouncing back and forth between the match and the outsiders. I think they're doing a better job than usual of dividing their focus rather than completely focusing on the fact that the outsiders are here and just ignoring the fact there's a match in the ring, like happens a lot.
Yes.
But Bobby does get a really good line where when Hall and Nash lean up against the limo and Hogan clearly must be here because they've promised he's going to be here, but we haven't seen him yet. Bobby says, "Quick, get the cameraman to shoot through the limo windows. They're a dime a dozen. We can always get more."
Right. Yeah. Now, it would be the ultimate heel move for Hogan to be like, yeah, I'm going to be there, brother. And then he doesn't show up. But I don't think necessarily in the way that they're hoping for. We go to another commercial break with the camera pulling up from the outsiders on the limo with like a big crowd of people walking past. Yeah. And it kind of looks like they're leaving. So that doesn't look great. But Heenan is trying to cover it. Look at all the people. But, you know, it looked like they're just headed up to go ride the Tower of Terror or something. We come back to more Bubba attacks. He starts, I guess, biting Luger's head. He might have been kissing him. I don't know. We learned from Sherry earlier how devastating that can be. So maybe he's just taking notes. Luger comes back, forearms, clotheslines. This is literally his only offense the entire time outside of the wrist locks. Then they go for what I called the gentlest double down clothesline I've ever seen. It kind of to me looked like I compared it to two drag queens like embracing and then doing a death drop move because they like literally just sort of run and like put their arms on each other and fall down. I'm going to put the clip in here so people can see it. I can't do it justice, but it doesn't look like the hard hitting accidental, run into each other that you're looking for there. And then we go into the finish, and I was a little confused on this. Jimmy throws something into the ring, a foreign object of some kind. We don't see what it is. Luger gets it, and he punches Bubba with it. Showing that kind of, Luger's a good guy, but not really sort of streak that he's got. And then I'm not sure if he gets disqualified at this point. The ref catches him with it and is like chastising him for it, but I don't hear a bell. I don't know, Joe. You're usually good at sorting out these WCW finishes. Could you tell what was going on there?
I cheat and I go and I look up the match result. Well, actually, what I do is I go to get the times of the match in case for some reason that would matter. But on this one, I did cheat and go look it up. It apparently is officially a no contest.
Okay.
I was gonna say I don't think the bell ever rang. So
yeah, no, it doesn't.
As far as I know, Uncle Bubba and Lex are still wrestling to this day.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, why do they even have refs in the WCW is my question at this point. I mean, anybody can count a pinfall. Scott Hall showed that at the end of Bash at the Beach. So, like, I don't know. Anyway, doesn't really matter because the outsiders hit the ring and start pummeling Luger. Still no bell for a DQ. So, like you said, Matt, apparently this match is still in progress. I wrote, I don't know if you actually can get disqualified in the WCW. But yeah, they beat him down, and now here comes Hogan, showing up, smiling, and sporting his all black outfit as he's making his way to the ring. Right about when Luger gets to take the jackknife, and then get rolled out of the ring. Hogan does a nice little bit here where they get Bubba up, and he's acts like he's cool with Bubba, shakes his hand, but then does kind of turns around and signals for the outsiders to kick his ass too. And yeah, I would say you've got an equal mix of cheers and boos at this point, as Hogan is posing with Nash and Hall in the ring. I mean, we know what Purple Pants Meemaw thinks very clearly, but there's, I think, about as many people cheering as booing as this is going on. This is what we wanted. This is what we called for last week, is we want the outsiders, we want the NWO to show up and make a statement, and they have made a statement at this point. And that statement is, get out of here, Lex Luger and Bubba. We're here to talk. Effective, not effective, Matt, where you at with it at this point?
No, I thought it was very effective. I was glad to be free of the match that was before it, because you knew it was coming and it was an inevitability. So I was happy to see them there. I don't blame the fans. If I had been in that building and I had been saved from that match, I probably would have cheered too. But I will say one thing that I noticed too during Hogan's entrance, coming out of the limo and as he's walking down and the camera is wide. I had watched the quote unquote Hogan documentary on Netflix where Hogan talked about that black outfit, and he said that it was kind of a mishmash idea that came together at the late concept stages before that episode of Nitro went on, and those tights don't fit very well. I don't know if you noticed little Hogan making an appearance. The boots are loose and too big.
A little about it, brother.
Yeah, so his outfit. It kind of sold me on the fact that Hogan might have been telling some kind of truth there, but yeah, that outfit was something. I tell you what, I enjoyed that on the way in. But yeah, like I said, if I had been in attendance, I probably would have been cheered to not have to watch Lex Luger wrestle anymore. So, I'll say effective.
Do you have any star rating for that match, or did you even bother?
It's still going. It would be unfair to rate it at this point.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, I don't think it'd be a very good match anymore. Luger doesn't get around very well anymore, but
he's about a third of the size too, so that doesn't help anything.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we lost Ray Traylor here a while back. So
well, it's a real no contest now. But
yeah.
Sorry, continue.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
I said a star. I appreciated the fact that despite the fact so many things didn't work, Bubba worked his ass off. That
Fair
star
enough.
is basically his star.
Yep, I agree. So another quick break, come back. Mean Gene's in there to interview the NWO, or as my OneNote keeps insisting on correcting it to, the Now.
Yeah.
Stupid OneNote.
Now that's what I call wrestling.
Hulk Hogan, outsiders, you've led us down the primrose path, says Mean Gene, which I don't think is exactly what that phrase means either. But Hogan says he wishes he'd have done this 2 years ago because he's bigger than the sport. And with the outsiders, they shall rule, which the shall is always interesting to me. It's oddly formal. He says one more time that the fans can stick it. And now we see Purple Pants Meemaw is up out of her chair, thumbs downing him right there. So she's disgusted. Devastating for him. Only thing more devastating is when we cut to the crowd to an entire family in Winnie the Pooh shirts who are also booing Hogan relentlessly. Gene reminds us, of course, that Sting said that Hulk Hogan, in fact, you can stick it. But Hogan says when he met Sting 10 years ago, he was a skinny little bodybuilder and he was shaking in his boots. Then he gets a little personal on the Macho Man, blaming his divorce on Hogan, but really it was because Macho couldn't rise to the occasion. Harsh. Zbyszko probably approved, though. And this is where the trash starts flying.
Yeah, I have a note that conclusion, Hogan gave Savage erectile dysfunction.
Yep. Canon.
I guess there was also a line from the beginning that we walked over that I really liked. It was the first time they brought, I think Mean Gene asked him, it was the first time it came up, what about the children, Hulkster? And Hulk Hogan says, we told them about the prayers and the vitamins. We led these kids down the right path, and these fans have the gall to boo me. Then that's where he drops it. You fans can stick it. So, they tied it back together with the bows of how all the little Hulkamaniacs were just devastated and how their parents couldn't believe it happened. So we at least reference back to some of the stuff that was said last week.
Sure, yeah. I mean, cut to Kevin Green. Again, we have an example of how Hulk Hogan inspired greatness in a generation. But yeah, he led them down the path. I think that's what Gene meant by the Primrose Path thing, but you can't lead with that or not give it any context. The fact is, he says he made professional wrestling. He'll always be bigger than professional wrestling. And again, with the outsiders, the New World Order shall rule. I think that's around where you see the crowd really turn. Like the cheers stop, especially when he's saying that he's bigger than professional wrestling. This is where Gene comes in with what we were initially saying. This should be the first time this idea is introduced, but asks him who else is going to be part of the NWO. Hogan says the outsiders were the renegades who were willing to walk through the door he opened, but they're just the foundation. The question is, will he build his empire with more outsiders he brings in, or will it be someone close to Ted Turner? Maybe Eric Bischoff. Good friends. Good save, Hulkster. Spoiler alert. Maybe some of the guys in the locker room. He's not going to mess with that skinny little Macho Man or Sting. But if the Giant has the guts, Hogan's going straight to the top to face him for his title at Hog Wild. And then he challenges and setting up a very important match that is going to be coming up on the next pay-per-view. Whereupon he then challenges the whole WCW locker room to come out, and if they come out, they're going to beat them all up, basically. The whole WCW locker room, or the ones of them that are here tonight. Who we see, and I think in a good move, coming out from the back, you get the Steiners, the Faces of Fear, Arn, all coming out, showing a unified front against the NWO. But looking like there's going to be a fight here. And I always kind of laugh at the thought of what happens after the camera turns off. Do they just turn around and leave? What happens live at the show at that point? Because they're not going to fight. But yeah, we go to fade into dark. There's a face off. You got a chair wielding Kevin Nash. Scott Hall, you see, talks somebody into throwing them his cane. So he's got a cane that he's wielding at them at that point. And the face off is on, and the WCW NWO war, I think, is on as well at this point. Impressions, Joe, on this segment. What do you think about how they delivered here?
I think it does exactly what it needs to do. We're going ahead and we're setting these guys up. This is the alpha threat in the company right now. We're making sure that Hogan's going to get booed. Not that I personally think there was much worry about that once they've pulled the trigger on turning him heel, but he does a really good job of, in a very PG way, making it clear that he's turned his back on the fans. They're having a little tougher time getting them to boo Scott and Kevin.
And that stays the case as
absolutely.
The whole way through.
There's, I think, 3 separate times that a Diesel chant breaks out as they show up at the various points during the night. So we know that there is a decent amount of the crowd that is here for this particular show that is more familiar with wrestling than maybe what we had last week. But yeah, no, it's very effective at establishing what this trio's alignment is and where what their position on the card is going to be.
Yeah, and I guess there was a line that Hogan delivered after he talked about getting that match with the Giant that I really liked. He basically said that Hogan Hogan will dismantle the entire business, take the WCW belt and make it the NWO belt, which, you know, we've all seen the pictures. We do end up with an NWO spray painted belt. But, you know, as for the promo as a whole, you could just tell, like, as much as Hulk Hogan and his management were on the fence about this heading into it, this is something Hogan has wanted since the fans started booing him. Like, he mentioned it multiple times, how he couldn't believe the fans had the gall to boo Hulkamania. And it's like, you could just tell with the way he was delivering that. I mean, yeah, he's a good actor, but you could tell that it was personal to him a little bit. Cause, you know, to me, I could feel like not just he was reading lines, but that like he really had these feelings. And maybe it's good acting, and I'm just as big of a mark for Hulk Hogan as Hulk Hogan is for Hulk Hogan. But, you know,
That's not possible, but
yeah.
yes, go on.
But, you know, I thought it was wildly effective. Like you said, they came out to mixed cheers, and then by the end of the first portion of this segment, and the trash starts raining down because Hogan has said something so bad that they've turned the whole arena against him. You know, love him or hate him, Hogan has people eating it out of his hands both ways, face or heel.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, absolutely.
this was just
he's a pro's pro when it comes to this stuff. He knows exactly what to do. The stakes are getting escalated here. I would rather have had like paper beer cups thrown at me than those plastic bottles. And from what I understand, eventually this does get to a point where they have to shut this shit down, because like full glass beer bottles are going to start getting hucked at various points too. So
yeah, they talked about it. They talked about it and say hello to the good guys, that at one point they actually had to start actively telling the fans not to, because it became so unsafe. Because they were, I think I can't remember if it was Mean Gene or a ref actually gets just absolutely clocked by a bottle at one point in the future and actually gets hurt. And that's when they realize, oh shit, we've gotten our fans. At first they're like, yeah, our fans are really bought in. And it quickly switched to, oh shit, they're really bought in. Somebody's going to get hurt. Like, you saw it at Bash at the Beach. A fan tried to jump into the ring and got absolutely potatoed by Nash. And you're going down the line it's a short walk from throwing heavy objects in the ring to walking in the ring with a bad intent. So, you know, I understand why it was cool at first, but it is going to get out of hand quickly, which I'm sure we'll see in the coming weeks and months.
But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt from what you're looking at here, this NWO story is already working. It's got its hooks in place, it's in flight, and I think it really took off at this point. And that brings me to kind of my discussion question that I wanted to bring up. And these guys are getting this cold, so, you know, bear with them, audience. But you're Eric Bischoff, and we're going to do a little game of fantasy booking at this point. You're Eric Bischoff. The NWO is working. You've got that stuff locked down. You've also got the Four Horsemen, and you've especially got the Dungeon of Doom faction, who are now rudderless, basically. Their whole purpose for existence is gone. Pitch to me, what do you do with the rest of the roster, especially these two factions? Because all three of these are heel factions, with the Horsemen being kind of tweenerish. But what do you do with the other non-NWO parts of the roster at this point?
I mean, I'll jump in first. My immediate thought is the Horsemen are kind of tweeners at this point. You're going to need to put up a unified front against the NWO. The numbers about equal out between the Four Horsemen and the NWO. Discount Mongo because, you know, whatever. But I think the best thing, I mean, obviously it works out the way that we do go down this road, but I think the best thing would have been to do is have WCW rally behind a face Four Horsemen and set up a series after. Obviously you're going to have to get the belt off the Giant, because like you mentioned, the Dungeon of Doom is rudderless at this point. So having the belt in that faction and on the Giant won't work for this story. It sets you up for the dream match that we don't get for a while, which is Hogan versus Flair. For the world title, you've got I guess the Outsiders versus Arn and Benoit, maybe not the most exciting thing ever, but you could probably get good matches out of it. But it seems like the most natural way for WCW to put up a defense is to rally behind the other biggest act they have and have the Four Horsemen be leading the debate. Now, that does isolate you from Sting, which was a big part of this turn. I don't know if you can have Sting join the Four Horsemen. This does put Macho in kind of a weird spot because Macho's not going to join the Four Horsemen. But obviously you have in this promo Hogan just absolutely going after Savage with some pretty out of bounds commentary.
Yes.
So turning the Four Horsemen against the NWO kind of undoes the business that you've already done unless you get Sting and Macho put into that somehow. But I think that makes the most sense logistically from trying to put up this is WCW's best act to stand up to the NWO, and it does loop you into dream matches with Hogan and Flair. So that's what was my immediate thought was. I don't know. I'll pass it to Joe. Maybe he has better thoughts than me.
No, I think I have some pretty similar thoughts. I think how I might lead it would be to go ahead and let's go ahead and let's play out the Sting Savage Luger alliance for a little while. Possibly work some kind of an angle, whether it's an injury angle. I mean, hell, we're already working an injury angle with Luger as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go ahead and lean into that a little bit more. Go ahead and tell Lex, hey, man, we're going to give you a month off from TV, which I'm guessing he wouldn't hate. And maybe run a storyline where the NWO is picking these three guys, apart, trying to take them out one at a time. We can do a blow off to finish the Four Horsemen Dungeon of Doom angle, and maybe even, I don't know, go ahead and let's just put the Dungeon of Doom out to pasture while we're at it. Maybe use it as an excuse to turn the Giant face so that Hogan can take the title off of a face champion. But as the NWO whittles down the three guys who are main event players who are standing up to them, maybe then that's how we can unexpectedly turn the Four Horsemen to the face side of the equation here, have them come out and against all previous indications, come out, and maybe we'll whittle it down to where it's just Savage against the NWO, because we've pretty clearly laid out the NWO is going to expand and have additional members. So without worrying too much about who those members are going to be, the Four Horsemen come out to save Savage because, well, he's better than the alternative. We can tease some tension between Savage and the Horsemen while we're setting up an angle that will allow us to push forward to solidly get the Horsemen to where they can be the faces that stand up to the NWO, while we allow Luger to come back to health, allow the Giant to blow some stuff off with the Dungeon of Doom. And have kind of a reset going forward from that point, where we have a solid group of baby faces who have an uneasy alliance going against this growing group of invaders.
Yeah. I kind of figure with the DOD, there's two options. You either got to turn them or you've got to get rid of them at this point. And they've clearly invested a lot of story capital in them, so I doubt they're just going to disappear. But, it's already, they're struggling to even get faces to put out there to wrestle clearly in these matches at this point. So, you got to get some baby faces out there working, and like you said, kind of working together, whether that's through the Horsemen or what exactly. They've got to do something, because that's the one bit of like fly in the ointment of all of this for me at this point, is you've got the NWO and they're looking great, and there's just nothing for them to kind of stand against. And I mean, I think that's part of why you got the situation that they talk about a lot during this period, where if you're a baby face that's in the back and you're hearing the NWO get cheered the way they're getting cheered out there, you got to be kind of worried about your job. Like, what do you do? Because you've been working to get yourself over as a baby face, and now these heels are getting cheered better than you ever did. That can't be a good feeling. So we'll see what ends up happening, but it'll be interesting to see at this point. But all right, guys, let's go home. Joe, you go first. Summarize or your final score and take on the whole show.
This was a rough one. Like I said,
Mm.
I watched it once. I was pretty thoroughly unimpressed. I went back and watched it again. I don't necessarily think that the Malenko Kidman match that I came out feeling a lot better about. That match aside, I don't think any of the wrestling got any better the second time I watched it. I do think that the non-wrestling stuff, particularly in the last half hour or so of the show, was a lot more enjoyable the second time around. So like I kind of had this, with the exception of the end promo, which is the end promo is a solid A. There's a couple minor quibbles that you could have with it, but like I said when we were discussing it initially, it does exactly what it needs to do. But the first time around, I really honestly thought that the rest of this show was like a C- at best. I don't think it got a lot better on a rewatch. I think we're still probably solidly in C territory, but C's a passing grade.
Get degrees. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Matt, where are you at on it?
The show was a real roller coaster. It started really low. You had a lot of lows. There was a lot of low dips, but you had a lot of high points. You had Malenko and Billy Kidman. You had Benoit and Guerrero. I mean, honestly, compared to the matches that were around it, you had Melissa versus, you had the women's match, Medusa. I don't know why it auto-corrected it to Melissa. Medusa versus Osaka, which was kind of an up point from the two matches that sandwiched it around it. Bubba and Luger, kind of forgettable. So, I mean, if you take the highs of this show, your two best matches and the NWO angle at the end, and compress that show down to an hour, it's a solid A. You put back the other stuff in the middle that didn't work, your curve gets drugged down to where Joe was, about a C. Your big moments bust that curve up straight, because your best moments were A+ moments in wrestling, whereas the rest of it was just awful. So the good stuff, solid A. The bad stuff, probably D's and F's, average out to a C.
Yeah, I think I'm in that neighborhood on it too. And it's not that kind of a C where like everything is average. It's like great or it's dreck. I'm getting a little worried about the tag team division, to be honest with you, because the tag team matches have definitely felt like some of the weak spots in the last two shows that we've seen. I think maybe because strong competitors are paired up with people who aren't as strong, but I want to see the Heat and the Steiners or things like that and see what like this can look like, because I haven't been impressed so far. I think that last week's episode, you had really good WCW stuff and pretty bad NWO stuff. And then this week, you've got pretty good NWO stuff and pretty bad WCW stuff. I'm looking forward to when we can get those two halves together and we can see what it looks like once you put it all into one soup, and we can see the two sides bouncing off. And I mean, going back to what I said at the very beginning, I've come around on it in terms of like this does slow build the angle that I think works and does hype up the thing. I'm excited to turn on next week's episode and see what that's going to look like once hopefully the guys are back from Japan by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I think you've got both episodes have two halves of a great, sort of follow up to Bash at the Beach, and it's just a little bit too bad that they couldn't have some of the elements at least overlap between the two of them.
Well, and I was going to say too, I happened to think of it while you were talking just now. I think one thing that really hurt this show was the Japanese tour, because you had to fill out a 2-hour card missing the majority of your star power. That's how you end up with 2 tag matches where you don't have the good teams facing each other. You have the good teams facing filler teams, and that hurts your score, but you don't have that flair, you don't have that sting to where you could have put something else in that slot. So I think the Japanese tour was really ill-timed here.
Yeah.
I think the NWO kind of helps this that they're missing in this moment, but like if think about this show without the NWO, without that NWO undercurrent, think about this show without the stars in Japan. Ouch, what a show this would have been without the NWO.
It's a fair point. Well, that's one more for the good guys. Nobody gets a point this week because no NWO WCW matches, but I think the future looks bright from this point on, and we'll see where things go. And I think we'll be getting to that spray painted title belt before too much longer, in point of fact. But for me, I'm Adam. For Joe and for Matt, thanks for listening. And as always,
Hogan, you can go to hell.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. The New Pod Order is a sister show of the Analyzing Attitude podcast, which you probably guessed from us being on their channel. Be sure to drop a leg on the like and subscribe buttons, and if you like our show, you should give theirs a listen, because you'll probably like it too. Its opening video was created by Ace, and the theme was recorded by Jade Garrow and is used with permission. If you want to contact the show, our email address is newpodorderpodcast@gmail.com, or reach out to us on X at NPOrderPodcast. The show is hosted by Adam and Matt Rogers and Joe Chasick, who want you to remember that when you're NPO for life.